Hi, it's Maria. As someone who's been sued over a dozen times in the last 30 years, from Chicago to Tampa to Clearwater Beach, by my family no less, there are so many things that I could share with you. And that you might be able to avoid some of the pitfalls and some of the traps that millions fall into, and some of them go head first. So, and then it's not a pretty sight. But I could say that my family is demonic or diabolical, but you can draw your own conclusions. It's actually, when you look at things from a higher perspective, it almost seems it's so ludicrous that it really seems rather humorous, actually, that that sometimes family tries to punish us. They like to penalize us for saying no to their abuse, or saying no to having boundaries, or saying no to refusing to participate with toxic people. And so there are people who are miserable. And if you remember the saying, misery loves company, well, they try to draw you in. It's a lot of drama, and it's not something that ends up being a pretty sight. And it's almost as if it's like a snake. A snake will coil around something and kind of just suffocate them, just dehydrate them, just squeeze the life out of them, actually. And there are people walking on this planet that are very narcissistic, that like to do the same. They like to kind of enmesh you in their own dysfunction. And so they are very good at smear campaigns, in fact. And they refer to you as a thief or a cheater, and they defame you, and they defame your character, and they talk about your truth. They don't even have a clue what truth really is, actually, but they defame your truth. They defame your authenticity, because people that have a lot to hide certainly aren't authentic, and so they target your integrity, because they lack integrity, so much so that they don't want anyone else to have it, right? And so just as a little preview here, I have lost 6 homes, including 6 beds. I've lost 7 cars. Yes, really. I've lost 4 children. I've lost 5 computers. Actually, I lost 8 computers, but I was too embarrassed to write that down here because it was when computers were just coming out, and it seemed like I needed one for my business. I needed one for this. I needed one for my children. And so anyway, and so they actually took every possession I own, and they've done this repeatedly. And I'm embarrassed to even tell you how many times they've done it. In fact, some judges would just say, sure, go into her home and take whatever you want. And of course, my ex-husband and my sister, who were working as a team, they were like, oh, yay, we get to take all that stuff. And they took from clothes and my books that I valued so much to tampons and toothbrushes. And they took people. And that was, I think, one of the most difficult things to deal with. They took dozens of relatives and hundreds of friends and thousands of acquaintances, all at the hands of jealous family. And but they don't work alone. They have to have somebody that kind of gives them the energy and gives them ideas of what to do and how to really, really be on the attack. And so it wasn't just jealous family. It was some of their dirty attorneys and corrupt judges, in fact. And so These people don't, they're not an island. They like to have their reinforcements. It kind of allows them to puff up, and think that they're much stronger than they really are. And so when they have like their entourage around them, right? So, and when I say that I lost all these things, that's kind of the wrong word. It was that they were stolen from me. And so I think my whole message really can be kind of encapsulated into the truth shall set you free. And that is exactly what, that is our greatest lesson while on this planet. It is to really behold the truth and not let anyone or anything come between you and your conscience and what you know is right. And so when it comes to even my sister and her attorneys who took bogus documents, wills and trusts of my inheritance to their friendly judge, and voila, he ruled for them. He said, oh, yes, go ahead. You can, I guess you inherit all of this. Meanwhile, the real documents said the two girls, because I have only one sister, the two girls would be able to share things 50-50. Well, they rewrote the documents, and it was my sister would receive 100%. It wasn't 50-50, it was 100 and 0. And so they thought that they really won by committing these crimes, by committing perjury and forgery. And so they act like they win, But in the end, these are unconscious human beings, because as we awaken and as we become enlightened to whatever degree we are able to accomplish that this time around here, we realize that these are pitiful human beings, and they're asleep. They're just like in a corner, just all curled up asleep, because anybody who would behave the way that they behaved just wouldn't be able to look at themselves in the mirror the next day. That's just not the way. Decent, integrous, compassionate, loving, kind, loyal, beautiful people behave. And these people have sold their souls. And if you know what that means, to sell your soul, it really is to behave in such ways where you operate in a vacuum, where you have no conscience, and where all you want to do is hurt people, because you get that adrenaline rush when you are hurting someone. And you hurt them for your personal gain, right? And that's where your life really is all about satisfying your addictions, be it alcohol, drugs, sex, meds, food, gambling, whatever, pick your poison, right? And so they don't win. And my family wanted me afraid. And so there would be like just this hush-hush of, you'd hear about that a contract was put out on me or something, and or there are hitmen a few doors down or something like that. I mean, you have to be so sadistic to even think of such a thing. But that is what people do. And then because they just love to gossip, and I told you about the smear campaign, and there's also gang stalking and things, no one wanted to help me, and I couldn't figure that out. And it was like the narcissist, gaslighting you, because they make you question your reality, and you think, could that really be happening? Or did I just kind of, imagine it? And so we have to stand strong and know that it's gaslighting. And so we don't question our reality. We know what we know. And we're not going to let anybody talk us into not knowing what's going on. And so, and I actually had like an older man with a scruffy voice. And when I landed, this was 2 or 3 years ago, when I landed in Florida, in Tampa when I came to deal with my inheritance, he said, I told them to come and get you. And I thought, oh my goodness, now we've got, what should I do? Should I go to the door and unlock it and open the door and say welcome? Or what do I do? Go hide somewhere? Or, it's just when people are so obsessed. And I also hear that there are people stalking me, and when they're so stalking me that one monitor isn't enough, or one computer screen isn't enough, or two isn't enough, and three really isn't enough, because they're huge. They're huge monitors in which they are able to watch my every move. So they watch and they study me. So they watch me in the shower, and there are cameras in the shower head. So they watch me in the shower, they watch me on the commode, they watch me getting dressed, they watch me getting undressed, and they study every word I say and how I speak and what I do and where I go. And you'd think I live this really interesting life. Well, you know what? To me, my peace is found when I have the opportunity to write and I can snuggle with my cats. and truly, that is such a blessing. And so one of the reasons why I came on to do this video is because I really do need that peace and quiet, and I haven't had a home in over 15 years. And I have lived with 33 different people. And on the one hand, it was like being at that Disneyland ride, It's a Small World. Remember that ride and that song, It's a Small World. And so because I lived with a Cambodian family, I lived with a Greek woman and 15 dogs, I lived with a girl who invited me to stay with her in Scottsdale, Arizona, but little did I know that it was because she was afraid, and so she slept with big wooden planks by the front door, and I didn't, I didn't know I was going to be the bodyguard, or I was going to, anyway, so everybody's got their stuff, and I lived with a videographer and a photographer who helped me make some of my videos that I put on my website, mariahaiti.com, and that was my idea in 2017 and 18, because I kept thinking, what is this all about? Why would this happen to me? And I thought, oh, I'm supposed to make like a Saturday Night Live kind of act, and a character, and I'd have all these different wigs, and I would talk to my hand puppets and things, and I had all these stuffed animals around me, and we were discussing spiritual ideas and spiritual thoughts. And so I thought that was just so wonderful, and I loved it. And then I ended up putting some of my things in a storage locker in Arizona, and they called me that someone had broken in, and of course that was my sister stealing all my props and my costumes and things like that. Just like I had an organic skincare company, and all of a sudden I heard that was stolen, and my manufacturer no longer wanted to manufacture for me. And so I understand that my sister paid him to steal my company. And so, if people are so, if they have to copy someone else and they don't have an original thought in their entire psyche, then they are to be pitied, because it's really sad. Those were my ideas, and I'm in the process of writing books right now, and I hear, sometimes I see on my computer files are moved, things are missing. I'll hear a phrase that I use said by someone else, and so I think, gosh, it's really sad that you can't come up with your own ideas. But it's affirming to know that people are actually reading and watching my stuff, and from which they copy. But what we have to do is just know that everything we do can help make this world a better place. And and it's not even negotiable, you know? We each have a calling, and we are here on this planet at this time to do our very best and to welcome another beautiful day when we arise. And so we can make a difference in this world when we let go of the negativity and we hold on for dear life to some of these relationships that we've had, and they've been with such toxic people. And so during that time, that has really brought us down. We were spiraling down and we didn't even know it. We thought, oh no, well, we can fix them, you know, but we don't really need another project, especially when people are in their 50s, 60s, I guess even 70s. And so, you know, we need to just help each other. And, you know, I was always the one that was helping people. And I was on different boards and doing this and donating and helping and everything. And I, never in a million years or a trillion years or a quadrillion years did I ever think that I would be in this position where not only do I not have a home, but I had two different vehicles that I leased. I leased a Honda in 2020, and I leased a Hyundai in 2024. And you know, I was living with different families, and I had a car during those times, so I was fairly independent. I didn't have any spending money, but Social Security, I had some Social Security, but it was survivor benefits. And yet, can you believe that Social Security said I'm the only person that they've not been able to find his death certificate? Therefore, they cannot issue all the money I had in Social Security, which sounds like a real scam to me. That's what I think. But in any event, I do want to go back to those cars. So I had the Honda, and then I had the Hyundai. And both times the Honda was having all kinds of electrical issues. I mean, I'd be driving along and the lights at night, and the lights would turn off, or the doors would open, or the lock or the hatchback would all of a sudden open, and I would park, and all of a sudden there'd be all this liquid that was kind of like spewing from under the car. And it was just doing a lot of weird things. And I was the only one that roadside assistance said they had ever seen anybody who was locked in the car and then locked out of the car. They said that just doesn't happen. So somebody's been really screwing with your car. And then so it started smoking and then rumbling and overheating. And I thought, oh my gosh, I know this car is going to explode. So I kept talking. I kept calling Honda and taking it to different dealerships. I think I took it to like 7 different dealerships, and no one wanted anything to do with it. So somehow they all knew something, and I don't know if my sister was paying them so that they would tamper the car and make it so that it would explode, or I'm not sure exactly how that worked. But I gave it back to them, and I wrote the board of directors and told them how that was absolutely, you know, just a nightmare, and shame on Honda for allowing that to happen. Well, when I came to Florida, I leased a Hyundai, and it was a Hyundai Santa Fe, and I thought it was a wonderful car, and so what happened there was when I was negotiating the deal, how much I would pay every month, and that just ate up my my monthly stipend. But they said, well, we have to take the car in the back so that we can prepare it for you, and then you can just drive it off to your residence or wherever you are. And I said, okay. So they bring me the car, and all of a sudden, I see this dent on the passenger side door. And it almost looked like a long finger, or how I used to describe it is, it looked like a lipstick tube. You know, it was kind of rounded at the tip, but it kind of went in to the car, and that was a dent. And you know, usually with dents, I thought there are scratches and things like that as well. But no, this was very clean, and it was very well done. And if you like dents, and so I said, "Oh my gosh, that wasn't here. That wasn't in the passenger side door when right before you took it from me to fix it in the service area." And so they said, "Ah, never mind. Just bring it in whenever you have a chance, and we'll fix it. Don't worry." So then around the holidays, I got an email from them saying, "Oh, you're due for an oil change and tire rotation or something. So bring in your car, and it shouldn't take very long, and you can just wait in the waiting room." So I thought, oh, that's a really good idea. So I did. And then as they brought me the car, all of a sudden I saw a dent in the driver's side door. And I was like, what is this, like a case of measles, where like everywhere we're going to start popping up with dents all over the car? And so anyway, I then made an appointment to have both dents fixed. And that was on March 6th. And I took it there, and they said, "Oh, it's not going to take very long. We'll fix it." So then they drove the car to me so that I could get in it and leave that dealership. And so when I did that, I started the ignition. I started the engine, and all of a sudden the car started to shake. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never had that before. Even with that crazy Honda, it wasn't really shaking like that, but this was shaking. And then, so I'm like, oh my gosh, I just better get this home. But I really thought, had I had the presence of mind, I would have just like not moved it. But I was only 10 minutes away. So I took it to my residence, and I started looking up what it could be, what's with Hyundais. And so I looked it up, and what I saw was truly shocking, because between 2009 and 2022, the date of the article, there were 4 million recalls of Hyundais, and more even, but the number I remember was 4 million. And what happens is that there is something faulty with the electrical system, and the electrical system then sparks, and if it's positioned next to the gas tank. And so as the electrical system is sparking, and it's the ABS brakes computer that is sparking, and then it ignites the gasoline, the gas tank, and then the car either just explodes, or starts a fire and then explodes. And so I was just reading this stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, they tried to kill me in the Honda, and now what are they doing? This is the Hyundai. And I think Hyundai paid over $500 million to people that were injured from these dangerous defects. And so so I called them right away, and I said, I can't have this car around. And actually, I think the most disturbing thing was they showed like a big parking lot, and then they showed one car in the middle of this parking lot, and then they showed it exploded. And so that's what it was. You don't even have to be driving the car, but instead, you could be in the store, you could be in a parking lot of a grocery store, and the car next to you all of a sudden goes up explodes, and then incinerates, because there's nothing left. And I thought that's really weird, because also when I was giving them my information at both dealerships, the new car dealership and the one where they fixed the dent, they had all my personal information totally wrong. So they didn't have my email address. So if, God forbid, anything happened to that car and they tried to reach anybody that that knew me, they wouldn't be able to reach anybody because they had my wrong email address. They transposed numbers in my phone, so they didn't have my phone number. They didn't have a residential address because I have a post office box since I move around a little. However, the post office box is generally empty, so somebody goes and empties it to take all my mail from me so that I don't know what's going on. But so that's the situation with the Hyundai. And so they have made no attempt to help me in any way. At one point, they said that they had this rental reimbursement. But because I don't want that car now, they said, oh, well, it's only while it's being fixed. And yours, probably was fixed the day that you turned it in. So anyway, that was I just wanted to tell you about, if any of you have a Hyundai, you might want to look it up on the internet. Although I did see that a lot of the articles that I had read when I first got on, I think I've talked about it so much to so many that they've taken down a lot of those articles. But anyway, and then the clicking noises that I heard, the clicking noises were actually the sparks. Yep. And then it would catch fire or explode. But, a lot of what goes on is people want to instill fear in us. And yet, if every day we can just, be grateful for this time on this planet and be grateful for all the blessings that we really have, then we can kind of transform our life into just the most miraculous and the most beautiful opportunity ever, is to be on this planet. And, it's not like we've given up on humanity, although they do have their challenges. But there are so many animals that need to be adopted. There's so many kitties. There's so many dogs. There's so many other pets, birds and butterflies and raccoons and goats and sheep and cows and horses and, pigs, little piggies. And so there are so many wonderful, wonderful animals that we can spread the love to, right? And so now you see people that are in different countries and they have some land, and they're taking animals that were to be slaughtered, and they bring them to their area, and they just hug them and love them and take care of them. And so because they've given them a lease on life, a new life, right? And so some people want us to be so depressed. And quite honestly, if I heard of someone who lost their home 6 times and had to keep moving, and this was when I was married, and these were my homes, or after I was divorced, but still, it was my home, and it was my Clearwater Beach condo was something my father bought for me so that I would move from Chicago here and spend time with my mother, who was suffering from a little bit of dementia. And so anyway, that's what I was trying to tell you. So anyway, when we talk about the wills and the trusts and family court proceedings, families have been destroyed in the probate process. And probate means nothing more than the distribution of an estate. So you go through probate if the will says, Sally gets this and Tommy gets this and this and this. And so you all kind of get together, the trustee figures it out and then distributes what you've inherited. And so that's a wonderful thing. However, what I realized is that it's almost a mockery. We have made a mockery of that system because you have people have no morals and have no ethics. And so what they do is they will change the names on the wills. So they will erase your name and put someone else's name. So if you were, as I was, 50-50, 50% to Maria and 50% to my sister, and all of a sudden they go in there with a document that says 100% to the sister and 0% to Maria. And so, and then their, kind of slimy attorney. Yeah, well, they wouldn't have that reputation if they cleaned up their act. And so, if they had done that, then the judge just kind of listens to the attorney, and the attorney says, well, judge, you know what, this doesn't have her name in it. I don't see it anywhere here. And all the names I see, it all goes to my client. And so then he says, oh, well, thank you, Judge. I'll see you at poker on Thursday night. And remember, we're golfing on Saturday morning at my country club. And so, and if you think that doesn't happen, that was almost verbatim from what I had heard from one of, from the attorneys that opposed me. And so they just wanted to let me know. It was kind of like, we're just gonna really screw you a little bit. And so, and make you suffer and and you won't be able to sleep tonight because now you know that the judge is on my side, right? And so you just think, oh gosh, you are really so sad. Just leave me alone, go away. And so, and one of the things that happens is that you don't want, what you want is to have jurisdiction over anything that happens to you. And so my mother had a beautiful diamond ring that my father couldn't afford to buy her when they were engaged. And so he always said, I'm going to buy you a really, really nice ring someday. And he did. And my mother, who was in a nursing home, my sister put her in there so that she'd be able to kind of finish her off. And in fact, my mother was starved for 17 days. And it's just an absolute travesty of justice. And she was starved for 17 days. And I don't know if she had 120 pounds or 130 pounds. But after 17 days, my mother looked like an Auschwitz survivor. She looked like she was in a concentration camp. She was starved to death, and you could count her ribs, you could count her bones. And she was really like just a bag of bones, like a 50-pound bag of bones. It was the most gruesome and the most cruel thing I had ever imagined. I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't even watch this, much less to have the guilt. Well, I guess narcissists don't have guilt, right? But to know that you did that to your own mother, I mean, how shameful is that? Like, the whole thing is just shameful. And so my mother died. My mother was starved to death, and she asked for water, but she was denied even a drop of water, a grain of rice, a crumb of bread, nothing. And her insides, her internal organs were kind of all, they were eating themselves. She was being eaten from the inside out, because with all the gastric juices and all the other digestive juices, the pancreas and the kidneys, and the pancreas and the liver and the gallbladder were giving off in order to, in order to digest. But there was no food for my mother to digest. It was just horrible. And then my father was put in a hospital room for 6 weeks while my sister was gaining all this information regarding the estate. And so again, it's all about the money. And it is, two parents that so lovingly cared for their 2 daughters. And this is how they spent, the last 6 weeks. Like, it started 6 weeks with my father being in the hospital, and he didn't even know what hit him. I think he was poisoned a little bit, actually, and then he died while I was holding his hand. And he, poor guy, I can't imagine that he ever thought that that his daughter would do what she did for the money. And so I did want to say one more thing about when that ring that I told you that my father finally bought for my mother. What happened was I was with my mother in this cold, stark room where she was to spend her last few days. And all of a sudden my sister came, and who has not spoken to me. We are not on speaking terms. I'd be glad to talk to her and tell her exactly what I think. But she's successfully avoided me because she has the GPS tracking, and on the cell phone she knows exactly where I am, with whom. And but my sister actually was wearing my mother's diamond ring, her special ring that my dad had bought her. And so she was wearing that ring, and she was deliberately like waving her hand in front of my mother's face. And my mother, even in her dehydrated state, my mother recognized the ring. And if you saw this little angel who was just laying on the side, who could barely open her eyes because she was so hungry, and she looked at that diamond ring, and all of a sudden she kind of whimpered, and then you saw one little tear, and it was going down the side of her face, and you thought, oh my God, oh, that was one of the most indelible scenes that I had ever imagined, and it is something that will haunt me forever, that I didn't want to see that, but I wanted to be there for my mother, and so she survived that, and I think it was another couple days, and then she died. But like, who would even think of punishing their own mother by doing something so sadistic and so cruel? It's really demonic, I think. It's diabolical, it's demonic, and it is shameful, ridiculously shameful. And people just aren't in their right minds when they even could entertain such a thought. But it's not so much it might be a mental illness, but it's actually more evil than anything. So I guess if you say everyone that's evil has a mental illness, and everyone that has a mental illness is evil, I don't know. I don't think that's the case, but I do know that a lot of people who are just plain ugly and mean say, their attorneys say, oh, Judge, you know what, she's just not all there right now, but she just needs some medication and she'll be just fine. And so you don't have to lock her up. We'll just take care of that. Well, I think people have to be held accountable for their actions. And so there's no easy way of killing someone and then walking away. But anyway, so, I did want to tell you about one of my homes, my last home, which was my condo on Clearwater Beach that my father bought me when I came from Chicago. And it was after my mother died that I was invited to Brazil for a spiritual, like a retreat. And so, this was 10 years after I had first moved to Clearwater Beach. So I had been there with my parents for a decade. And then I went to Brazil, and while I was there, it was supposed to be a 2-week trip. And while I was there, I received some emails from my sister's attorney. And it was the most ridiculous thing I could have ever imagined. The attorney's email was something to the effect of, oh, don't bother going home because we've changed the locks to your home, and your condo is not your condo anymore. And if you ever go near that building again, we're going to call the police and have you arrested for trespassing. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is just too crazy. Wake me up from this nightmare. Because everywhere I went and everyone I called acted like there was nothing I could do to remedy the situation. No one would help me. Not one attorney, not one friend, not one neighbor, not the police, not the sheriff, no one. In fact, it seemed that they all knew what was going on. So there was a lot of money changing hands. There was a lot of corruption. There was a lot of subterfuge, because these things don't go unpunished. And you don't just have someone who goes into someone's home and then sends them an email and says, by the way, you've lost everything. Yes, you've not only lost your bed and your computers and your all of your vitamins that you had there, and all the wonderful books you had, and the photos and the gifts from your children, and all the wonderful memories that you had. But they've all just poof, they're just all gone. And don't ever try to get anything back. And basically that's where we are. And it's been 10 years. And in order to keep my sanity, I have at least had, some wonderful experiences with a very interesting group of people. And it's really allowed me to, to really transform, and I don't view material possessions the same way that I did. And so it's a matter of we evolve, and every experience that we have kind of pushes us, kind of nudges us to evolve even more. And so what I was hoping by this letter was to be able to have access some funds so that I could stabilize a little bit. And, I've been living out of suitcases for how many years now? And some of my things, I don't even know what's in there, because I end up wearing the same gym clothes because it's more comfortable for me. And I'm not going to any, fancy parties or anything, so I don't need to even open up my suitcases where I had some other nice clothes. But I know what I was going to tell you. Do you know about the Wicked Witch of the West and her flying monkeys? Well, that's the Wizard of Oz. And Margaret Hamilton was the Wicked Witch of the West. And, she was really creepy looking, and she had the cap on like that, and she was just kind of had a really big ugly nose and stuff, and she was like green, and she was, and so it was so weird. And so she had this group of flying monkeys, and they would do whatever she told them to do. So if she said, go steal from this one, and go do this, and hurt Dorothy, and the Tin Man, and whatever. And so they did. So they would do everything she said. And what I realized is that, in our society, we do set up groups like this where people are in control and the others are like their lemmings, and they tell them what to do. And these people don't use their own mind or their own discretion or their own logic or anything. And they just go around following what they're told to do, which is commit crimes, commit felonies, commit murder, I'm not supposed to say that on the air, to commit the most heinous crimes. And so what I realized is that every attorney I called would say, no, we can't help you. And then they'd say, well, actually, no one in the state of Florida can help you. And I thought, well, tell me more about that. How in the world can that be, that there can't be one attorney in the entire state of Florida who, when I need legal representation, they run? Tell me about that. And so what I realized is that because I was so monitored, they knew everyone I was calling and every appointment I had and everywhere my car was because of the GPS. And so when I would have an appointment, they would get there first, or they would call and somebody would say, "You're not to take this case." And so what it was is that in law, if you have a conflict of interest, which is by definition, if you have any contact with the other side, then that is a conflict of interest. And so you can only be, you can't be tarnished. So you have to only have been with one side. And so what I realized is because I was being so stalked, and they knew if I placed a call to an attorney's office and he called me back and we said, "Oh yes, we'll get together Monday at 3:00. Well, all of a sudden, Monday at noon or something, I'd get a call and it would say, "You know what, he has to cancel the meeting." And I'm like, "Well, why?" And then they said, "Well, he can't meet with you." And I said, "Okay, so we'll make a different day." And then she'd say, no, he can't be involved. And I think, oh my gosh. And like the first dozen, all right. But then it's when it's more than a dozen, when it's like it ends up being over 50, then you absolutely know that there's something very dark and very sinister. And so even for someone who was homeless and carless and clothesless and computerless and phoneless, I did hear in President Trump's inaugural address in January, he did say no more social experiments. And, just for a second, I just thought about that and I thought, so tell me about these social experiments. And I just felt energetically that he was like talking to me, and it was something that I needed to hear. And I believe that President Trump knows of the corruption, and I believe that because the suffering has just been so blatant, and I do believe that he meant what he said when he said there will be no more social experiments. Now, I don't know if you can really call this an experiment, but it certainly isn't life, the normal life that we all live. So I have really been hoping, hoping is not the word, but I have really been anticipating that the president would lift this dark veil, this dark cloud that has blanketed my family for decades now. And so I truly want to believe that he will do something about this. I know it's June, and he said that in January, but I do believe that a lot of the things that are being exposed now are for our good. And I do believe that there are still so many more things that are being exposed. And one of them is whatever just happens, whatever is happening to me, because no one should have had to suffer and have everything, not just one thing or 1,000 things, but everything they've ever had taken from them. And when I, at one point, I saw that a consignment store had opened up a few blocks from where my beach condo was. And I couldn't get myself to walk in that store because I just knew that my sister had taken my clothes there and that they opened a store for that. And that it was just a one-time thing. And then, and I'm sure she took what she wanted, and then the rest of it she put there, got the money from the consignment store, and then they closed the shop. But it was just to kind of show me that, see, your stuff it's really trash, it's really garbage, or somebody else is going to be wearing it and you're not going to be wearing it. So it's just a lot of just dumb stuff, I think. Anyway, we just have to keep telling the truth, and and not allow ourselves to be so traumatized by it all, and to see it from a higher perspective, and to say, okay, well, you know what, these people just don't know any better. And so anyway, I will end this now, and I hope that I explained part of the reason, at least, of what all of us are vulnerable to go through. And so as we seek our strength and we seek the truth, things will slowly, but they will turn around. There are so many instances where the truth has been blocked from us, and it's time that we really forge ahead. And there's no reason why anybody should be hungry in this day and age. And one of the things I didn't tell you was in my 33 different homes that I ended up being friends with the people I lived with, and they invited me to stay there. And so it's a very humbling experience. But also, I did, when I first realized that they weren't kidding, that I couldn't go to my home and I couldn't get anything from there, I ended up going to a homeless shelter. And I would go to churches, though, first, and I would ask them if there was any way that I could help them. And in exchange for a bed. And so they would say no. And they'd say, but there's a homeless shelter that you can take a bus to. And so I ended up doing that. And I remember the welfare worker or whatever, she said, when was the last time you used? And I just said, used? I don't know what you're referring to. And she said, oh, well, I mean, are you on drugs? Are you drunk? Are you, what are you? Did you just come out of jail or what? And so I thought, oh, no, I don't do drugs. I love a good glass of red wine for sure, but no, I don't have those addictions. And at 105 pounds that I was there, and I'm almost 5'9", yeah, no, I don't overeat, that's for sure. And so, and some days I was so hungry that I ended up eating like a loaf of bread because there was no other food, and I had no money. And so, and I would ride the bus. And one day, I think I've mentioned this in another video, was somebody came and sat down next to me. And I was so afraid, actually. And it was a test of faith. I knew that God had put me there so that I would just have the faith to know that I would be okay. But I used to dress in like a black baseball cap and a black jacket, a black top, a black leggings, black gym shoes, because I didn't want anybody to see me. I didn't want anybody to recognize me. I didn't want anybody to talk to me. It's like, okay, well, this is my spiritual journey. But what was I going to tell you? Oh, so anyway, this gentleman sat down next to me, and he was talking on his cell phone to someone. And he said, yes, I have the gun, and I'm going there now. And I understood that he was going there so that he was going to hurt someone. And so I was like, oh my God, no. And so we stopped. So I pulled on the cord so that the bus would stop. And so I pulled on the cord, and then I got off, and then he followed me off. And I thought, oh, good God, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? And so I started to walk. He started to walk right behind me. And then fortunately, I just kept praying and praying and praying. And fortunately, I kept walking, and he stopped, looked at me, and then he turned around and kept going in the other direction. And I was so relieved. And I thought, oh, thank you, God. You were just reminding me that everything that is happening to me is in divine order. And so I am divinely protected, as are you. And so enjoy the ride, because it is, I don't like roller coasters. I don't know if you do. But yeah, it can be a pretty scary roller coaster ride. But when we're grounded and we can see the bigger picture, and we know that we are being tested to see, are we going to allow this distraction and that distraction to pull us off course? Or are we going to do what we're here to do, which is to help other people and to help ourselves first? But it is to help others as well, whether it's our children, whether it's people that we don't know, or people that we can help people with our story, so that we inform them of things that are happening, so that they aren't so blindsided. Because there are many times when I was so blindsided, and I would have given anything to have been in the position where someone would have come, given me a hug and said, you know what, you're going to get through this, and this is how it's going to be, and you're going to be just fine, because they had been through it. So you see, we are not only students, but we are teachers. And so I will leave you with that note. And I truly, I have a book full of stories that I think can really help you. But right now, right now, I am trying to pay my rental car. Oh, yeah, I don't even know if I told you that one of the reasons why I'm on was because of the rental car. And the reason why I had the rental car, even though I had paid the lease, was because of my family sabotaging the car so that the Hyundai would explode, and so that the Honda, was steaming and just, it was horrible. That was the same thing there. So don't let people get the best of you. Just move forward in faith and know that you're doing great. And so anyway, I thank you for anything that you might be able to help me with, and may we connect again. And I think you have my email, so if you should need anything, or if you want to talk about anything, please feel free to reach out. I'm also on Facebook at Maria Haiti, and there you'll see a lot of pictures. And those were pictures that I did because I think when you tell somebody you're homeless, and they have a very negative view of that. And in fact, I was just as guilty, because I had never spoken with a homeless person. And in fact, I remember this one thing. I was at a street corner, and I was crossing the street, and I told you I was all in black. I didn't want anybody talking to me. And all of a sudden, there was a guy in the kitty corner, and he was a big, tall, black basketball player, but he had, I don't know, he had some issue with his oral hygiene or his teeth or whatever, and so he had lost his teeth, and he was just going and getting new teeth put in or whatever. And so he was across the street, and he's like yelling, Maria, hey Maria. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I just couldn't even imagine that I knew somebody in the ghetto like that, that's like screaming my name, like waving, like, hi, how are you? And I'm like, oh, great, how are you? And so it's just interesting, isn't it? How with a different perspective, we're so grateful that somebody recognized us, and that everybody needs help. And one of the things, I made a video called, what was it called? It was called, it was about homeless people, and I interviewed a variety of homeless people. And one of the things that I mentioned in the video was that really dental care is one of the most important things that need to be allotted and need to be provided for homeless people. and people that are on welfare, because it's a shame that that they don't receive the right dental care. And I guess it has to do with money, but they don't. If in fact there's a cavity, rather than filling that cavity, they'll pull the tooth, and that is is really. I'm not a dentist, but I would think that that's just the easy way out. And I think our Americans deserve better dental care and better food in the shelters, because the food is highly processed. It is a lot of donuts and things like that for breakfast, and so it's we do need to provide more healthy meals for people who are suffering. And if they're homeless, they're suffering, and it's incumbent upon us to help our brothers and sisters when they are going through things that are very painful. But anyway, okay, so that's the end, right? And I will talk to you again soon. I love you. Thank you so much for listening. Bye. Have a great night.